welcome to the Charlene Show, a show that discusses taboos, social, cultural, lifestyle, and human interest stories. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Beatrice Maupa, who is a psychology and guidance and counselor lecturer at UZ, who is a former high school and teachers college teacher, who is a certified mentor and counselor, who is an author and an advocate for gender parity and equality. Dr. Maupa, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
No, we are so pleased to have you on our show and to talk to us about gender-based violence. Because as a former teacher, as a lecturer at UZ, I'm sure you are well versed in gender-based violence and young people or at institutions, and I'm sure you are going to shed more light. Thank you so much for your taking time off your busy schedule to come and join us on the show. I guess the first and foremost question I would like to ask is, as a lecturer at UZ, and as someone who interacts with students on a day-to-day basis, how do you define gender-based violence?
Okay, thank you very much. I want us to understand that what I'm giving you is my personal definition of gender-based violence, because it is a complex issue. It's a human rights issue. And I know many people, really want to understand what GBV is all about. And what I'm giving you is not an academic definition of GBV. But what I understand by GBV is that it's just a term that is used to refer to harmful acts that are perpetrated against individuals, against persons, and based on socially constructed or ascribed differences between males and females. It's coming from, allow me to say, it's coming from the patriarchal system. What is a man? What is manhood? What is a woman? What is womanhood? So that's where all this GBV is, coming from, and I'm giving you my own, perspective, because I know many books have been written about GBV. Many researches have been done or conducted about GBV. But from my interaction with students, from my interactions with fellow lecturers or colleagues, that's how I understand GBV. Oh, and wow. It is a global, issue. It cuts across races, it cuts across cultures, geographical, boundaries, cultural boundaries. And wow. It is a human rights issue.
Oh yes, a human rights issue. So now let's go back to your institution. As a lecturer with your institution, what are some of the warning signs that you have seen in learners that have shown you that they are exposed to gender-based violence?
Oh, okay. I would like you to understand that some of these things are kind of subtle. They may not be as apparent as we would want them to be. But sometimes you can see that someone has issues when they are kind of withdrawn. They are no longer participating in lectures. They are no longer, active, in some, activities as they used it to be. So you can actually tell that there's something wrong. And as teachers, as lecturers, we can actually approach, the students or the individual and ask them, what is happening, And sometimes we talk about these issues in lectures. And after lectures, some of them may come, to our offices and say, I have this problem. It really depends on how you would have interacted with the student, because sometimes they don't open up. And in some instances, you get the information from other students, concerned students. They come and tell us, if you have a way, please try and talk to so and so. They seem to have, problems. Personally, I'm a counselor, but with counseling, you don't go about sniffing, people and saying you have difficulties, you have problems. You want them to come to you for help, But if you show them that you are, warm, you are open, they will come and share, their concerns with you. And that's what happens. And sometimes you get it from the way they write their assignments, the way they attend lectures. Sometimes they don't attend lectures regularly. And you want to find out why. What's causing, that sort of absenteeism or, erratic attendance. You get, some things like that. Because when we are talking about GBV in institutions, we are not just, confining ourselves in the institution, so to speak. Because we know some of the GBV, maybe from their homes, from the community, from the society, from the church, or whatever. So we get to understand those issues when we interact with students, warmly.
In learning institutions, who perpetrates GBV?
I would like to think that everyone is a potential perpetrator of GBV. The teachers themselves, lecturers, if we are talking about universities and colleges, they are potential perpetrators. The students themselves, even the ancillary staff, they can also perpetuate GBV. And everyone is also a potential victim. So we are talking about two things here, that everyone can be a potential victim or can be a potential perpetrator of GBV. Yes, but usually when we are talking about GBV, the focus is on men doing things to women. Men are usually taken as or considered perpetrators of GBV, but there are also women who perpetrate GBV. Yeah.
And mental health and GBV in learning institutions, how is that linked?
Yeah, there is a strong link, between mental health and GBV. Because when someone's rights are violated, you like I've already alluded to earlier, they become withdrawn. And the way they process information is kind of affected. Yeah, they are not forthcoming. They are not, ready to offer, some services, for instance, or to do some activities. Especially in universities, we are saying we deal with, mature people, and some of them are already working. But you can actually tell that, yes, this one is a mature person, they are working, but they are kind of withdrawn. And if you are talking about issues, that concerns development, institutional development, national development, they are kind of withdrawn. So you can actually tell that someone's mental health has been affected here.
And education, does it play a role in ending GBV?
It does. It does, to a larger extent. Because what we are saying is that as educators, we have, a role to play and making sure that we stop GBV and if possible, stop it, so that we no longer talk about, GBV. But because I've already indicated that sometimes it's subtle. If we don't pick it, then it can be perpetrated. But we are saying we need to give them information, our students, fellow lecturers, the community, the school community, university community, college community. They need information, they need knowledge. They need to understand what GBV is. Like I remember I said, I'm giving my own definition of GBV. So some people may have their own definitions of GBV. So we are there to kind of, come up with, a global kind of, definition, so that we all talk about the same things. We give them information, we give them knowledge, but we want them to then use that information profitably. Because someone can have knowledge, but they fail to use it. So we are saying, as educationists, as colleges, schools, we are there to educate learners or the community. Let me just use the word community, because we have learners, students, we have teachers, we have ancillary staff. We want them to understand what GBV is. We also want them to know how to deal with it. Yes. We want them to know that they can actually seek counseling, guidance. We also want them to understand that they can report cases of GBV. Because in schools, especially in schools, there's a lot of bullying. And it goes unnoticed because people don't report. They are afraid of the unknown, fear of the unknown. Because, what the perpetrators do is that they instill fear, in their, or into their victims, so that they don't report. So we want them to understand that they can report. And remember, I've just said that GBV is a human rights issue. If your rights are violated, you should not be quiet about it. You need to speak out. So we should tell them how to do it. Yes.
So do our learning institutions have mechanisms in place to address issues of gender-based violence, and also mechanisms in place for victims to go and report gender-based violence at institutional level?
Oh, okay. Thank you very much for that question. I would know about other institutions, but generally, mechanisms are in place because, schools are now teaching guidance and counseling. Colleges are also teaching guidance and counseling. Universities are teaching guidance and counseling, and there are counselors in all those institutions. So it's kind of a mechanism to make sure that, these issues are addressed. But, one thing that I just want to comment on regarding the teaching of guidance and counseling is that sometimes they teach. I, as a lecturer, I supervise, students who do their researches, projects, dissertations. So I get to understand that sometimes in certain schools or in some schools, guidance and counseling is just taught, right, as a subject. And I want to believe that, mechanisms are, underway to make sure that it is also examinable. They write exams. But my question is, to what extent do we then offer it as a service? Like if someone, has issues, they come to me as their counselor. They know I have to go to, so and so for counseling. Because that is the sort of thing that we want, to be open, to embrace, victims of gender-based violence and any other, issues that they will be facing. That is when we advise them to report. And sometimes, we need to report on behalf of the victim. But sometimes, such cases don't need counseling per se. They don't need guidance. They really need action to take the person to the police. And, related to that, I strongly feel that if we really want these mechanisms to be effective, then we need to embrace what I refer to as a multi-sectoral approach to GBV, where we know we work with the community itself, we work with the health sector, the education sector, the police. We have the victim-friendly unit there. We work with the courts. We work with NGOs, so that it becomes, our problem as a nation, or as, it becomes a global issue, like I indicated earlier. And we need to address it from that perspective. Yes. Because if we just leave it to the counselor, they may not do a good job. Yeah.
Wow. So, okay, as a lecturer, what is your experience with gender-based violence in students?
Okay. Like I indicated earlier, some clean that their rights are being violated against. But you can tell from the way, they interact with you that there's something wrong. If they used it to be forthcoming, doing things, and they are no longer doing them, it means there's something that's worrying them, and we need to find out what is worrying them.
So this is your personal experience?
It is my personal experience. Yes, my personal experience with students, and let it be put on record that is my personal experience. And what I'm sharing is what I've experienced or what I've learned from students themselves. Because in lectures, sometimes we talk about these issues. Remember, I said we actually teach guidance and counseling. And in guidance and counseling, courses or modules, there are also aspects of gender-based violence. So we address those issues. And sometimes we get to share ideas, and some people actually share their personal experiences. Because we, especially at our institution, we teach mature people, those who are already working, teachers. In our faculty, we have, teachers. Yes, so they share with us their personal experiences or what would have been, say what they would have gotten from students themselves, their own students. They are students, but they also have students. Yeah, and they get to understand what's happening to those students. They share with us. So sometimes it may not be something that would have happened to them directly, but it would have happened to other people, and they then share with us. Yes, what we refer to as personal disclosure. Sometimes they actually disclose what would have happened to them, especially those who are married. Yeah, sometimes their studies are affected, because the husband may be complaining or the wife may be complaining, So we really take aboard, all those, issues and deal with them accordingly. Where we don't know how to do it, we refer. Okay. Yeah, we actually have referral, facilities.
You refer to outside?
Yes, we do. Okay. We do. In fact, in our institution, every faculty has counselors and advisors, academic advisors. Then we actually have a unit which deals with the whole university. Yes. Okay,
and suicide, can we link suicide to GBV at learning institutions? Because there are a number of suicide cases that have been reported on social media. Can we link these to gender-based violence?
Yeah, we can. Because remember when we spoke about mental health, because when someone is disturbed, they don't know what to do. They want to do well in their studies, but because they have these other issues, or they are actually sitting next to the perpetrator of that abuse, so they end up, losing hope, and they end up thinking of killing themselves. So we have a lot of suicide ideation, in institutions, whether primary, secondary schools, colleges, universities, they are there. Yeah, but I want to say, we can safely link them to, GBV.
To gender-based
violence. Yes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Maupa, for the information you've shared with us. Do you have any advice to students concerning gender-based violence, and advice to those students who are suffering in silence? They could be affected by gender-based violence at home, or maybe it's affecting them at the learning institution.
Oh, okay. Yes, my advice to students, all students, whether they are facing gender-based violence or not, because who knows, maybe tomorrow, today they are not, affected, but tomorrow they may be affected. My advice to them is that they should report, they should come out clean. They should cry out for help. And they should also be, what we refer to as my brother's keeper, my sister's keeper. Like you are the big brother, you are the big sister, and you want to protect the other person. You should not just focus on your own interests. When you see someone suffering or you think they may be suffering, you need to, approach them and offer help. Then they should also know that there are, counseling services which they can access and, find help. And regarding the young ones, I think they need to speak out. They need to talk about these issues. Sometimes people end up thinking of killing themselves, committing suicide, because they don't share their, issues or their challenges. So they need to share their challenges with others, so that they get help, the help that they so need. And I may also extend this to even the parents themselves. They need to find out from their children what's going on. It doesn't matter that they are now mature students. Talk about what's happening.
This is Dr. Maupa in studio talking to us about gender-based violence and linking it to learning institutions. Dr. Maupa is a psychology and guidance and counseling lecturer at the University of Zimbabwe, and she has just been sharing with us the subject of gender-based violence with regards to learning institutions. And the message remains the same. If you are a victim and you're suffering in silence, speak up, speak out about it. Do not keep quiet. We have got a lot of remedies at learning institutions in Zimbabwe that can help you as an individual to curb the effects of gender-based violence and to come out of gender-based violence. Until we meet again next time, let us continue to orange the world. Goodbye.